Distinguished entourage to the State House of Assembly for Your Excellency's presentation of the 2022 budget estimates. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, around this time last year, His Excellency Chief Willie Obiano was here to present the 2021 appropriation bill. With the remarkable support of this great House of Assembly, we have all seen the positive results of this year's budget, notwithstanding the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Your Excellency, we recall that during last year's presentation of the 2021 budget to the House, you made particular reference to the construction of the Anambra International Cargo and Passenger Airport at Umre. It is indeed one of the major highlights of that budget. Today, Your Excellency has successfully completed that signature project, making it the first of its kind in Africa. It is also on record that many other provisions in last year's budget, such as the International Conference Center and the Oka Capital City Stadium, are nearing completion and will soon be commissioned. Your Excellency, your administration has recorded tremendous achievements both in human and infrastructural development. You have made Anambra proud through your purposeful administration's prodigious empowerment of thousands of our people, resulting in improved standard of living for the citizenry development of our state. We express our readiness to continue to partner with the executive arm of government through passage of people-oriented and development-driven legislation, among other statutory duties. As usual, we are duty-bound to first take a look at the budget and come up with a legal framework that will satisfy the intent of the government and the development expectations of Anambra. Already the House has scrutinized the 2022 to 2024 multi-year budget framework, fiscal strategy paper, and budget policy statement document, and approved it after necessary adjustments. As this is the final lap in the budgetary cycle of this administration, I assure Your Excellency that the House will give this budget expeditious consideration and will pass it as soon as possible. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Anambra State belongs to all of us, and we all have a duty to keep it safe and conducive for development. I call on politicians in the state, irrespective of their party affiliations, to join hands with the governor in moving the state forward. I urge Anambra to pray fervently for the peaceful conduct of November 6th World election in the state. Let the people be free to cast their votes according to dictates of their consciences, and let their votes count. On this note, may I respectfully, on behalf of this great 7th Assembly, invite His Excellency, the People's Governor, Chief Dr. Willie Obiano, to present his 2022 budget.
It is with humility I stand before you today to present my administration's draft budget estimate for 2022 fiscal year, which is the last of my 8 years as Governor of Anambra State. Mr. Speaker, Honorable lawmakers, the year 2021 has proved the saying that tough times don't last, but tough people do. The Nigerian economy posted a surprise rebound in the second quarter of 2021, which turned out to be the fastest GDP quarterly growth rate since 2014. According to the report released by the National Bureau of Statistics in August, the country's GDP grew at 5.01% year-to-year in the second quarter of 2021, up to the 0.51% in the previous quarter and minus 6.1% in the second quarter 2020. The strong growth posted indicates that the business and economic activity may have started to climb back to the pre-pandemic level. Recall that in 2020, the global economy slumped into recession on the back of COVID-19 pandemic. Induced lockdown, disruptions in trade flow, shutdown of domestic and international flights, and restriction of intercity travels. Nevertheless, it is of interest to note that this administration weathered the storm that rose from the twin shocks of COVID-19 pandemic and low oil price. By maintaining a strong focus on our economic blueprint, we remain committed to our vision to make Anambra first choice investment destination and a hub for economic and commercial activities. An ambition to make Anambra a socially stable, business-friendly environment where indigents and non-indigents alike will have opportunity for wealth creation. Mr. Speaker, honorable House members, just when we thought there was a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, the Southeast and the nation in general slide in violence. My team and I rose to our feet to adopt measures that will minimize the threat and receive the widely acclaimed security architecture of our dear state. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, I'll use this medium to especially thank this hallowed chamber for working with us to stem the tide of violence in the state. Meanwhile, I also take this opportunity to thank you for the quick consideration approval of the 2022-2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, MTEP. Bearing in mind that this is an election year, our hope is that the State Assembly, under your leadership, will continue to collaborate with the Executive by ensuring that deliberations on the 2022 draft budget are completed in a record time. This will be the last annual budget of this administration to be passed by this hallowed chamber. Thus, we have designed it to consolidate, sustain, and build on the gains of our administration over the last 8 years, even as a new administration comes into office on March 17, 2022. At this juncture, Mr. Speaker and honorable lawmakers, please allow me to state that this budget is in sync with the aspirations of Anambra Vision 2070, a 50-year development plan that will guide development in the state to the year 2070. The Anambra Vision 2070 is a plan which successive governments can rely upon for strategic directions of policy and programs and regulations, and may also serve as a veritable tool to evaluate future administrations. You will recall that on November the 21st, 2019, I inaugurated a 60-man development plan committee for the Anambra Vision 2070, chaired by Professor Charles Soludo, the former governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, and charged it to draft a 50-year development plan for the state. I'm happy to announce that the plan is completed following a series of high-level stakeholders consultations and submissions and shall be launched soon. A review of the 2021 fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, Nigeria is currently emerging from a very difficult economic challenge. The COVID-19 pandemic has placed Nigeria at a critical juncture. The country slid into the COVID-19 crisis with falling per capita income, high inflation, and governance challenges. Nevertheless, the nation is recovering from weakening macroeconomic conditions occasioned by the pandemic, which compelled economic lockdown and led to a sharp decline in oil price. Nigerian gross domestic product GDP grew by 5.01% year-on-year in real terms in the second quarter of 2021, making 3 consecutive quarters of growth following the negative growth rates recorded in the second and third quarters of 2020, according to the GDP report released by the National Bureau of Statistics in August 2021. The steady recovery observed since the end of 2020, with the gradual return of commercial activities as well as local and international travel, accounted for the significant increase in growth performance relative to the second quarter of 2020, which was marked by nationwide restrictions. In the current fiscal year and in the last few years, we have made great efforts to sustain year-on-year growth. Our economy grew from 4.44 trillion naira in 2017 to 4.2 trillion in 2018 at the rate of 5.75%, and it is expected to hit 4.5 trillion in the 2020 GDP report, going by the preliminary estimates from the State Bureau of Statistics. Accordingly, our budget size of 143.65 billion naira for 2021 fiscal year to the State House of Assembly was approved. The budget of economic recovery and consolidation was to help sustain past performance and ensure the state maintain its status as a hub for business and a destination for new investments. 86.9 billion naira was the amount for capital expenditure, translating to 60.5% of the budget, while 56.8 billion naira went to the recurrent expenditure, translating to 39.5% of the budget. However, we are mindful that due to the security challenges occasioned by the gubernatorial election tussle witnessed in the current fiscal year, it is likely that our domestic economy may contract, thereby leading to the general reduction of economic activities and a significant loss on most sectors of our economy. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, our efforts are at tackling the COVID-19 pandemic to contain and prevent it from becoming a frightening medical emergency have been top-notch. The statewide COVID-19 response committee, which I chaired towards reducing COVID-19 spread in the state, working with the State Ministry of Health, the committee developed new measures like COVID-19 testing, mobile teams that visited religious centers in the state and offered counseling on the need for residents to go for voluntary tests as well as the drive-through COVID-19 testing where public samples were collected while residents went about their normal business. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, I'm delighted to announce that our dear state did not record a new COVID-19 death this year. This is even as we ensure that over 60,000 Anambra residents got vaccinated. We have also sustained our efforts in the area of offering health insurance to the Anambra. It is interesting to note that Anambra State Health Insurance Scheme, ASHA, covers about 100,000 beneficiaries. In addition to that, in less than 3 years of this existence, ASHA has become a reference point in mass health insurance in Nigeria. Its adoption model strategy, which enables public-spirited individuals to pay for health coverage for the poor, has become a benchmark in health insurance in Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, in the agriculture sector, we launched the 2021 farming season and continued with the distribution of free inputs to farmers, including rice seeds, cassava stems, maize seeds, and okra seeds. Fertilizers were provided to farmers at a subsidized rate as part of the efforts to boost agricultural production. We sustained our collaborations with NSAL, SMIDAN, and CBN to empower farmers and provide access to single-digit loans to improve production through various programs, including the Anchor Grower Scheme. So, through these interventions, additional 20,000 direct and indirect jobs were estimated to have been created. We also commenced the building of mega fish farms with 50-bed capacity hostels in each of the senatorial zones of the state, and presently at more than 70% completion. In the area of MSMEs, we commenced another round of disbursements of 2 billion CDN ASPA Micro Small Medium Enterprise Development Fund to over 20,000 beneficiaries with a recovery rate of over 90%, building on the success of the 2020, where Anambra recorded the highest recovery rate of 87% in this program nationwide. We have also established a one-stop shop and shared multi-function and digital industrial machines facility at Osile, Umunike, Inoyi Local Government Council area. The modern SME facility is a partnership between the federal government and the government of Anambra State, and the project was commissioned in August of 2021 by the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Willie Obiano. Also, we have ensured that shoemakers with disabilities benefit from the newly commissioned facility through the issuance of shops and the provisions of tools to this special group of citizens. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, in the transportation sector, the state government has constantly engaged the activities aimed at improving the transport system. Thus, we sustain our digitalized traffic management and control, emergency response and rescue services, and citizens' feedback through the continuous maintenance of the State's Transport Command and Control Center, TCCC. It is of interest to note that the center has enabled prompt response to traffic gridlocks and accidents, emergencies, and other road incidents on a 24-hour basis, in addition to monitoring, coordinating, controlling road traffic and transport activities in the state. In the educational sector, we have continued to lead the pack and come first in nearly all the national exams, both at the senior and junior levels. Our teachers have not been left out, as we have consistently won the greatest number of awards at the National Teachers Award programs. My administration signed up with another glorious performance last week when Team Anambra won 4 awards at the President's Teachers and Schools Award for Excellence in Education in Nigeria, where we also won the overall Best Teacher Award. We have also increased our investment in technical education by revamping 12 technical schools across the state, remodeling the existing buildings, purchase of new equipment, and construction of 700-bed capacity hostels in 12 technical schools. We have also built new classroom blocks across primary schools in collaboration with federal government under the Universal Basic Education Scheme. At the tertiary level, we have invested heavily in infrastructure development into school roads, buildings, science, laboratory equipment, and hostels across state-owned tertiary institutions. I am extremely delighted to report that we have pushed our internally generated revenue from a monthly figure of 2.1 billion in 2019 to approximately 2.5 billion in 2020. Also, we have sustained our efforts to plug revenue leakages and growing the taxpayers' database by enforcing mandatory registration of Anambra Social Service Identification (ANSI) as a prerequisite for any service provided by the state. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, we have also instituted a wide range of reforms in public finance management in the state. This has helped us benefit a lot under the federal government World Bank sponsored state transparency, accountability, and sustainability programs for results. We have set out a work plan to ensure that the sustainability of these reforms at the end of the SEPTAS program. Not surprising, Anambra is listed as one of the top 3 states in the budget 2021 fiscal performance ranking, behind Rivers and Ebonyi State, indicating that its fiscal fundamentals compared to other in the country were more prudently managed. The report also listed Anambra, Rivers, and Lagos as the only 3 states in the country that could meet their operating expenses obligation with a combination of its internal revenue and value-added tax. Legacy projects. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, I'm happy to report that work is almost completed, actually completed, at the Anambra International Cargo and Passenger Airport, Umwe. At 3.7 kilometers long and 60 meters wide and 1 kilometer at each side, the Anambra State International Cargo and Passenger Airport, which has the second longest runway in Nigeria, next to only Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, it is a thing of pride that the airport is ready for public use. little over a year after construction commenced on the site. This is the test landing of the 2 commercial aircrafts belonging to Air Peace and a corporate one conveying the chairman of Anambra State Investment Promotion and Protection Agency, to Anambra on Friday, the 30th of April 2021. The whole nation has been ecstatic about the incredible progress at Nigeria's most modern airports. Your governor, myself, have also flown in at that airport twice. From Lagos, 45 minutes, from Abuja, 38 minutes. Very soon, all of you will begin to do that. Apart from being the first time jet planes have ever landed in Anambra State, the airport has drawn national attention on account of its being built up to the global standard in just 15 months without any financing from any institution anywhere in the world. Emphasis, we didn't borrow a couple to do that airport. We used Anambra money for that project. We are now at the verge of getting approval from the NCAA to kickstart commercial operation from October the 21st of this month. Also, work is on top gear at the International Conference Center, which has a seating capacity of over 10,000 persons at the same time. And if you add the foyer, you can sit well over 12,000 people. The Okashisi Stadium project is at almost 90% completion rate. At the moment, these are not only some of the outstanding legacy projects of my administration, but also great initiatives that will change the physical and the economic landscape of our dear state. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, here is our unaudited half-year account as at June 30, 2021. Half-year budget, I'll round up, 28 billion, actual 10 billion. Performance percentage, 35.4%. Capital expenditure, 44 billion, actual 25 billion, 26 billion. Performance percentage, 59.6%. Despite the disruptions in the economic activities occasioned by the sit-at-home campaign by non-state actors, we achieved a recurrent expenditure half-year budget performance rate of approximately 35.4%, while our capital expenditure half-year budget performance stood at approximately 59.6%. This led to an aggregate half-year budget performance of 50%. However, the return to normalcy in the later periods of the current years is assumed. Thus, I expect our overall budget performance to improve to approximately 75%. Mr. Speaker, you will agree with me that before this administration steps into power, Anambra State ought to be among the high-earning states from IGR, from markets, but a lot of business which ordinarily should be contributing into this have not been captured in the tax system. It has been worsened by irregularities in the tax system, which has diminished revenues collection and promoted diversion of IGR to individual pockets by the so-called revenue agents. But since the advent of my administration and the ongoing digitalization of the tax process, many of the irregularities are being scored. Currently, the internally generated revenue of Anambra State has tripled under our administration. There has been a significant rise from 9 billion at the end of 2013 to 28 billion naira for the fiscal year ended 2020. We plug most of the leakages by bringing into the tax system all, particularly those businesses in the informal sector that formed the bulk of businesses that our people are engaged in. We have also captured more through floating of the Anambra State Social Service Identification ASID, numbering platforms to the Anambra to facilitate their active participation in meeting with civic responsibilities in tax payment. Thus far, the internally generated revenue service has registered not less than 40,000 businesses and enrolled no fewer than 300,000 people. In addition, Anambra launched the state revenue stamp in November 2019, and this has given a boost to stamp duty tax in the state. Before the end of my administration, the Geographical Information System, GIS, will be in place, and this will improve revenue from land administration and management. All these efforts led to the increase in the state's IDR from 9 billion in 2013 to 28 billion naira in 2020. However, fiscal shocks induced by the COVID-19 pandemic caused by a slowdown in the state's year-on-year IDR growth, which increased by 6.22% from 26.37 in 2019 to 28.01 billion in 2020, compared to the 36.59% growth witnessed between 2018 and 2019, when the state pulled in 19.3 billion naira and 26.3 billion respectively in both years. Nevertheless, Anambra State prioritized investment in capital infrastructure over investment in operating expenses in 2020. At 43.77 billion naira, Anambra had one of the 5 smallest operating expenses for running the state government amongst all the 30 states of the Federation. It cut its overhead component of its operating expense by 22.11% from 23.55 billion in 2019 to 18.34 billion naira in 2020. Other states to achieve this feat in 2020 are Ebonyi, Rivers, Cross River, and Kaduna, according to the state report of 2021. The report states that out of our Anambra State, 110.3 billion naira in 2020 spending, 57% or 63.23 billion naira went to capital expenditure, while operating expenses got 47.77 billion naira and 3.3 billion naira on loan operating expenses. The state's 2020 capital expenditure of 3.2 billion naira represents a 27.7% increase from the 49.5 billion naira capital expenditure in 2020, making it one of the 19 states in the country to increase their capital expenditure even as COVID-19 pandemic dealt blow to varying degrees to all the states. Without a doubt, COVID-19 ravaged the revenues of many Nigerian state governments, and the need to explore options for building back better cannot be overstressed. Thus, a critical first step for our state is to rapidly block any financial leakages that will further drain the available revenues or further revenues. Regarding the plugging of leakages for revenue savings, the state was able to achieve the use of biometrics in its payroll management, being one of the 3 critical surplus results relating to the optimal public finance management at this last assessment done to the states. We are aware that the procurement process are one of the biggest areas through which revenue leakages can occur. Hence, we have adopted open contracting principles to minimize incidents of inflated contracts and other forms of procurement and procedural fraud. It is important to note that the new process under the Bureau for Public Procurement has saved the state over 14.5 billion naira in inflated contracts since its inauguration in June of 2020. Furthermore, to complement efforts in rising revenue and blocking revenue leakages, we have ensured a rapid build-up of capacity in the deploying custom and innovative public-private partnership models to deliver on critical infrastructure projects and programs. This is essential in key sectors like health, education, housing, and agriculture. Fiscal year 2022 annual budget estimates. Mr. Speaker, honorable lawmakers, for the 2022 fiscal year, we are proposing a budget size of 141.9 billion naira. This budget is based on realistic projections on all sources of revenue, both external and internal, taking into consideration the state's revenue and expenditure trend. While recurrent expenditure is projected to go up 43% of the total budget size, translating to 60.9 billion, the remaining 57%, which translates to 81 billion, is for capital expenditure. This is expected to drive the 2022 budget theme of continuity, sustainability, and development of New Anambra. This budget will be geared towards sustaining our past performance over the last 7 years and ensure that we maintain our status as a hub for business and a destination for new investments. Basis and assumptions for the draft and 36.6 billion naira annually for the last year. We plan to achieve this through instituted reforms, optimizing our IGR windows through automation, anticipated flag-off of the international cargo and passenger airports and International Convention Center. Our status as oil and gas producing states with the derivations that will come with it, as well as continuous strengthening of our enforcement initiative and sustaining the growth of our tax database. We have no plans to increase taxes or levies in the coming year. Capital receipts, including grants and other fact transfers, counterpart funds, aid, and concessionary funding, are estimated at 23.38 billion naira compared to 18 billion naira of 2021. Personnel costs are estimated at 1.8 billion naira monthly, which is about 21.6 billion naira for the year, compared to 1.56 billion monthly and 18.8 billion naira for 2021. This figure will ensure that the new hires are accommodated into the civil service, including the replacement of retired teachers and staff promotions. Total overheads are estimated at 1.98 billion naira monthly and 23.78 billion naira for 2022, as against 1.3 billion naira monthly and 16.64 billion naira for the 2021 figure. While social benefits and contributions, including pensions, gratuity, group life insurance, and loan repayments, are projected at 18.3 billion naira for the fiscal year 2022, compared to 16.4 billion naira for the year 2021. We have provided 13.4 billion naira for domestic debt financing. This comprises of single-digit concessionary program, lending for interventions in health sector, social investments, agriculture, manufacturing, and youth entrepreneurship. Bold, decisive, and urgent action will be required during 2022 budget implementation to stem the tide of revenue underperformance in the state, as the issues are more around optimizing efficiency and enforcement of extant laws and administrative circulars. Highlights of our social capital plan: road, works, and infrastructure. Since the onset of the administration, roads and bridges have remained a major focus area. It is therefore estimated that out of the a total sum of 23 billion naira earmarked for roads and bridges. 12.16 billion will be spent on the construction of new roads as well as the rehabilitation of the existing ones. Plans are on the way to complete over 30 ongoing road projects in the three senatorial zones of the state, as well as construct more roads to open access to agricultural communities and boost food production in the state. We have set aside funds to the tune of 871 million naira for the effect of road rehabilitation and maintenance in the state by the Anambra Road Maintenance Agency. Meanwhile, we have earmarked 10 billion naira for the completion of the Anambra International Airport Umueri and 2.86 billion for the completion of the International Convention Center, Awka. Similarly, sum of 700 million naira has been earmarked for the completion of Awka City Stadium and the development of stadiums in Ekulobia and Okwacha. Agriculture and related sectors. In agriculture, we intend to maintain our achievements over the past 7 years. We should continue to support cluster farms in these three senatorial zones of the state on comparative crop advantage basis, so as to empower the youth, women, and commercial agricultural credit scheme and accelerated agricultural development scheme program supported by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Our collaboration with Central Bank of Nigeria and development partners under the various programs like FADAMA, IFAD, RAM, to support increased farming activities and access to farmlands will be sustained in the coming year. And 3 billion naira has been allocated to this sector to continually ease our programs and policies are effectively implemented. Education. Our investment in education shall continue with the overall goal of achieving global competitive education. To realize this, we have made projections of a total capital expenditure of 3.23 billion naira to be spread across the following areas. 3.37 billion has been earmarked for basic education and special projects in the secondary schools. 201 million naira is allocated to Anambra State Universal Basic Education as well, while 1.67 billion naira has been allocated to infrastructure and capacity improvement in the state-owned universities, colleges, and polytechnics. Environment. 3.42 billion naira has been allocated to the environment from this sum. 1.97 billion has been set aside for the establishment of waste management facilities and a fraction of this budget for the procurement of refuse and moving equipment, as well as establishment and upgrading of existing parks and gardens. Youth empowerment and creative economy. This part of youth restlessness across Nigeria and in the region in particular has compelled a rigorous review of our plans for the Anambra youth. Indeed, my administration has a great regard for Anambra youth, with over 70% of my appointees being youth. Thus, 2.08 billion naira has been allocated as aggregate funding to youth entrepreneurship and empowerment program across the ministries, departments, and agencies in the state. We have also allocated over 778.5 million naira to empower youth through vocational agriculture and artisan training programs, as well as 82 million naira for the establishment of creative centers, innovation hubs, and ICT-related projects. Health. We agree that a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. Therefore, we have set aside the sum of 5.8 billion naira for the sector to continue the implementation of strategic initiatives that will help fill identified gaps in our health system, which the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed and to further improve healthcare delivery in the state. Small and medium enterprise development. Out of the 2 billion commercial agriculture credit scheme facility, 1 billion naira will be spent to fund micro entrepreneurs through cooperatives in the 3 senatorial districts. Disbursement will be 60% to women and 40% to men. The balance of 1 billion will be disbursed and managed at single-digit interest rate to small and medium enterprises. The COVID-19 response program with the World Bank, which will provide an additional $5 million to support capacity building programs and startup funding for young entrepreneurs, is expected to kick off by the end of 2021. Furthermore, it is hoped that the World Bank, Nigeria's COVID-19 action recovery, and economic stimulus palliative would support MSMEs across the sectors in the state, develop community projects and support households with conditional cash transfers. Water resources and public utilities in the Anambra. The Anambra can attest to the improvements in the security aided by the Light Up Anambra program and other rural and urban electrification schemes. As a result, we have earmarked an additional budget of 2.1 billion naira to sustain the program as well as other water and sanitation programs across the state. Community Social Development Program. The 20 million Community Choose Your Projects initiative has continued to produce impressive results across the 181 communities in the state. Therefore, 1.4 billion has been allocated to communities that have completed the second phase of the project to enable them to commence the third phase. It is also heartwarming to report that the Community and Social Development Agency, with the support of the World Bank, has started delivering critical amenities to poor and vulnerable communities. Disability and inclusion programs. Persons living with disabilities have been transformed to subjects of rights and no longer objects of charity. Our desire is to help persons living with disabilities in a manner that preserves their self-respect by empowering them to do for themselves those things people do for them. The Speaker, Honorable Lawmakers, this budget seeks to consolidate and sustain the development aspirations of Anambra State. It is our hope, therefore, that it will be given a speedy consideration, passage to ensure sustained and steady advancement in our dear state. It is with great pleasure, therefore, that I lay before you this hallowed chamber my administration's draft budget estimate for the 2022 fiscal year. I thank you most sincerely and wish you well, as this is the last time I will stand before you to present the budget. Thank you and God bless you.